Deep in the hills of Pennsylvania, the official story is only the first layer. I am Bob Gorley. This is Bob's Truth Seekers, and I am honored to have John with me this morning. John, can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up?
Okay. First of all, it's hard to say my last name, Krumich.
Yes, it is.
I grew up in mostly Gibsonia, Pennsylvania, just north of Pittsburgh. I was born in Ohio, but I only lived there 6 months. Moved to downtown Pittsburgh for my first 5 years, and then ended up in Gibsonia for most of my years. So that's where I grew up.
How did you end up living in beautiful Cook's Forest?
Well, my parents lived in, they met and married in Oil City, Venango County. And my wife and I are teachers, and we went to different schools around the country, but we ended up in New York City for a while. And I taught at a school in Brooklyn, and she taught in Manhattan. And we needed to get away in the summers. So my parents were by that time retired and living in Oil City, and I always loved Cook Forest. And so we actually bought a piece of property like 35 years ago for $12,000 on the river, which you could never do again.
Especially on the river.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful neighborhood area, and gradually I learned to build. I built a barn, and we stayed in that. We started having children, and so we had a little barn with a loft upstairs for Amy and me, and the kids were downstairs. Tiny little barn. And then while we lived in that, I hired some guys to work with me on a cabin, a simple cabin. And so we gradually built the place up. And so every summer we came up to the Cook Forest, to our spot, and visited with family and friends and all that kind of stuff. But it was totally uninsulated, you had to drain the water at the end of every summer and all that kind of stuff for many, many years. But my kids thought of Cook Forest as heaven. Like, that's where you go in the summer. So then jumping way ahead, when we finally retired in like 2018, my wife and I came up for the summer, but we bought a condo in Alexandria, Virginia. We had been living in Virginia. Thought we were going to come up for the summer and then go back to our condo and settle in, and we never went back. we ended up, my son now lives in our condo. We still own it, but we never really lived in it. And so we had to insulate. We put on a few little additions. We bought a shed for more stuff, and insulated, and got a heat. We didn't even have heat, so we had to get a gas line in and a nice gas stove too. So anyway, we totally love it for year round.
When did you meet Tom, the guy that plays pickleball?
Tom, well, only playing pickleball.
So recently, huh?
Yeah.
You got brothers and sisters?
I do.
Where are you in the pecking line?
I'm the oldest boy, 3 boys, but my sister is older than me, and 2 years older than me, and she lives in Seneca, so I get to see her a lot. And yeah.
What first sparked your interest in music?
Well, you don't live in my family without being a musician. That's number one. My dad was a musician. He wasn't professional, but he was professional grade. He played in the Pittsburgh Opera and Orchestra, and he did a lot of stuff, but he was an engineer. But he was a really good flutist, I say. And my mother also played flute. My older sister is a really good pianist, and she's a choral director of the Menango Chorus, for instance. And I started on piano and then switched to clarinet. Was a clarinet major in college. My next brother was a jazz flutist. He died of cancer a couple years ago, but he was a really good jazz flutist in the Miami area, and everyone knew him down there as a jazz flutist. And my youngest brother was a trumpet and played in the U.S. Army band and lots of gigs. So he played recently in Chicago. He got hired to play trumpet in the Chicago Lyric Opera. So what my family growing up was like, for some ridiculous reason, we didn't actually plan it, and my parents didn't push it, but was fighting for the practice room every evening. Some people, you're like, I want to practice first so I can watch TV. No, I want to practice. No, anyway, so we all were musicians in our family.
Was there a particular instrument, song, or experience that got you hooked?
Well, I always was, I ended up loving to play clarinet in orchestras and pit orchestras for theater. And so I ended up really being interested in theater, musical theater. And so somewhere along the line, I got hooked on going to musicals and seeing shows that combine really good music with theater, you know. So I guess that's my best description. But
What school did you go to? University?
High school.
Okay. High school?
High school, I went to Pine Ridge. It's called Pine Ridgeland now, down in Gibsonia, but it used to be called just Richland. Went to Pine Junior High or middle school, and then Richland High School. Now it's Pine Richland. That was high school.
While you were in high school, how many people did you graduate in your high school class?
Something like, I want to say like 180 or something like that.
Fairly decent size.
Decent, but not huge. The one thing, in 4 years, and this is a ridiculous sports statistic, but in the 4 years I went to that high school, our football team lost one game. We were WPIAL champions of our class 3 of the 4 years and lost in the finals of the other year. And so we had just this amazing small underdog feeling in our school. I wasn't on the team, but we were always smaller than all the other teams that we played. Our coach was so good that he should have been at Penn State or something. But so that was an interesting.
Yes, it was.
That was our identity. Oh God, Richland, they're going to kill us. So.
Okay, then you went to a university?
I went to Capital University in Columbus, Ohio for undergrad, and then which has a really good conservatory of music, and then I went to later. I studied in Austria for a year with some master's degree credits in Salzburg, Austria.
Did you ski? Is that the Alps or something over there?
Yeah. Salzburg is right. Well, it's where Sound of Music was filmed.
Ah.
The hills are alive with the Sound of Music.
Ah.
In fact, I lived in a dormitory there. I know that these is a sideline, but a dormitory in Salzburg was the home that they used in the movies, The Sound of Music, for the Von Trapp family. And so when I watched that movie, I said, "Oh, my room was right there." Yeah. And then I did graduate work at the Manhattan School of Music in New York City, so I have a master's degree.
So you've been described as a local musician and a playwright. How did you transition into writing plays and musicals?
Well, I was always, the music part comes really easy for me. I like to compose. I like music theory, which knows the chords and the patterns and the forms and everything you need. So that part came pretty naturally for me. Writing the plays, I ended up with a children's ensemble in Virginia. We lived in Virginia for 20 some years, and I wanted to combine my children's ensemble, which had 30 children in it, ages 8 to 12, with theater. I wanted to get them involved in being like their own little pit orchestra or do their own little plays. So I would start writing small things, but a couple of them got big, and we ended up doing them with adult theater companies and stuff. One of them was an opera, and one of them was a Christmas musical. And I ended up taking those two things and making them not just for children anymore. And so you saw one, Good King Wenceslas,
Yes.
became something that can be done now by community theaters. And I don't know if you saw my one in August. It was
Did not.
we did it was Appalachian folk. I call it an operetta, but it changed. It has no children in it, and it's a long story what it was like when we had it with the children and how I had to transition it. But the story was had a good kernel of a good story, and I decided, okay, I'm going to make it for community theater, and it took a long time coming up with the script and the dialogues and changing some songs and all that stuff. And so I think it's my best work right now so far. And I have one more in the that I'm working on, one more play.
Okay, your holiday musical, Good King
Wenceslas.
had auditions back in '23 at St. John's Episcopal Church in Franklin. What inspired you to create a new musical based on that classic carol?
Well, as I said, it was a piece that I had done 4 or 5 times with a children's ensemble and adding adult parts. And I presented it to the executive director, Zach Covington, at the Barrow, and I said, I really think it could be a good Christmas holiday program. And so he had seen it. We had performed it when Zach Covington was a young music teacher. He had gone to Louisville, Kentucky, and a big national conference of music educators, and that my group performed there. And he had seen it like 20 years ago or something like that, and he liked it a lot back then, but I changed it completely. So anyway, he gave it the green light, and we also decided it was too busy a time for most musicians and singers and everything to do it in December. And it's about after Christmas, basically. It's Good King Wenceslas is not Christmas. It's about St. Stephen's Day, on the Feast of Stephen. That's after Christmas. So we decided, okay, we're gonna really upload it hard, learn it fast and hard in like October, then put it to sleep, forget December, the end of December, start to have rehearsals, and we did it in January. So.
How many family members did you have in that? Because it seemed like there's a lot of your relatives involved.
Well,
maybe not.
In my sister, I pulled in, who's the director of the Venango Chorus, as producer. So she helped produce it, like making all the phone calls and organizing things. My niece was one of the characters, and her 2 daughters were in it. So
there's
I had three people in the cast. The cast is like 28 people. So.
All right. More recently, you had Yonder Mountain, an Appalachian folk opera.
Mm-hmm.
It's an allegorical tale set in Appalachia. What's the core message or idea behind that story?
It's being an allegory. What an allegory is defined as being, you have characters that have meaning to life. They almost represent different characters in the world. And so the story was an original story. I'm very proud that it didn't come from some folk tale or anything else. It was completely something I made up a long time ago while I was living in Salzburg, Austria. I wrote a little short story, and that was the kernel of it. But so it has 5 main characters, and some of them don't even have a name. Like one's a preacher, one's a traveler, one's a forest lady, a mysterious forest lady, and then there's a young girl that's the daughter of the preacher, and then there's a soldier. So they represent the world in a way. And then there's a chorus, and the chorus, they call it kind of like a Greek chorus. They come on and sing a lot, and they're on the stage a lot, setting up the stage, singing. So the story, the basic thrust of the story is that the preacher puts his daughter up in a treehouse in the middle of the Appalachian woods to protect her from because she's blooming as a young lady, and he wants her to only be seen and wooed by people who have some distance and he can control her. And it doesn't work out very well for him to be that restrictive, putting her up in a treehouse. But the soldier comes, the traveler comes to woo her, and so it's a little bit of a story about roles in society and how people have to find their own way. You can't put someone up in basically a prison and expect that to work out.
Where did you get your inspiration for something like that? Was it a dream, or did you?
Well, that's a good question, because actually in Salzburg, you have the Alps all around you, and believe it or not, that creates weird dreams, because there's certain atmospheric things that happen, and some nights you wake up with these really weird, vivid dreams. And this was actually a dream I had in Salzburg about. Then it was sort of like a medieval story of a father putting his daughter up in a tower, and a knight came along, not a soldier, and but it is a dream, and I was with a small group of people that wrote poetry and stories and read to each other, and I wrote the story up, and I put it away for a long time. And I came back to it, and I decided to transfer it to the Appalachian Mountains, make it a book. And plus, by that time, as a music teacher for all these almost 40 years, I had a huge repertoire of Appalachian folk songs and tunes. So in the piece itself, there's 6 of authentic Appalachian songs that just fit into the score. So, and it works, I think works really well. So.
What's the most challenging part of creating original theater? Writing the script, or composing the music, or seeing it come to life on stage?
Yes, all 3. The music, I can write a music score pretty easily, pretty well, but then to make a score, you have to use technology. You have to use music notation on the computers. You have to make a score, and then all the parts have to be written out and copied and sent. And it's a lot of editing, a lot of, you can easily like scratch out something on a manuscript paper, but to make it into something that you can hand out the parts to 12 people in an orchestra and singers, and here's the vocal part for you, and here's the vocal, that takes a long time. And then the script, you constantly want to change it. There's, like one of my favorite times of being inspired is mowing my lawn on a riding mower, and I come up with a line and I have to run back in and write that line in because that would fit perfectly. So it's almost subconscious. You have to kind of keep adding or sometimes subtracting. So that's hard. And then you finally get to putting it all together, and we're in the middle, we're in the country here.
Yes.
And there's only so many people that are in the music theater world, and you need some producers and people that know so and so. Like in Yonder Mountain, we got a guy from Pittsburgh to drive up all the time. The director came from Erie. You have to pull from the region, and you have to know who's available, and you have to. There's a huge commitment that they all have to make, and they're not getting paid anything. It's ridiculous. It's like, how can you possibly ask these people to do all this? If you were in a big city and you could get someone to pay, everyone, and this is their job, and they came to auditions and they know they got the part and they get paid, that's one thing. But to just ask a whole bunch of people to make these huge commitments, drive hundreds of miles, and come to all the rehearsals, it's absurd. So that, I guess, in a way, that's the hardest thing. Get people to actually do it.
A labor of love.
Yeah.
Okay. How rewarding is it to see your local community actors and audiences bring your works to life in places like here?
Well, it means a lot to me. I get emotional when the show starts to work in rehearsal, and then when the audiences come, it's like you ride a nice high emotional feeling, because if it's working, if the audience is responding and stuff, there's always a chance that it could be a bomb.
Yeah.
You could put all this work into it, and you don't even know if they're going to like it. And you learn different people's tastes. Like, this isn't something. Some friends of mine, oh, that was good. That was nice. And other people, you get really beautiful notes about saying how much they loved it and stuff. So it's all you have to almost like have a thick skin about some things and thin, but you're so emotional about it, and it's so much your baby that you can't be objective about it. It takes you a while to recover.
Well, family seems important. You have a daughter, Phoebe?
Yes.
That works in the American school in London?
That's right.
How has having family overseas influenced your life?
Well, she is almost like a muse for me. She's so smart about stories. She's a literature type person, and so I get a lot out of just having conversations with her, and it's wonderful to be able to fly to London, stay several days. We've done trips we did a whole tour of Wales, we did a whole trip of Scotland with them. We met in Barcelona. She married this past summer, so she and her husband now, he speaks fluent Spanish and other languages. And so anyway, she's fantastic to just culturally get aware of a lot of other cultures and things
Do you speak other languages?
I speak some German, but
German?
yeah. But
What's your lifeblood? Where are you guys from? Like your bloodline?
well, my father was born in Switzerland,
Switzerland.
which is he lived there till he was like 7 or 8 years old, and they came over just in time for the Depression, 1929, to Pittsburgh, and they got flattened moving to Pittsburgh, and my grandfather worked at Mesta Machine in Pittsburgh, but didn't make much money. And my grandmother, who was a very strong-headed person, made clothes for the very rich ladies, like the Mellons and the Carnegies and
But then
the Heinzes.
she had to be good because they wouldn't have got anybody that wasn't real good.
She got a reputation, and they ended up hiring her. So she got the family through the Depression. My uncle, older than my father, was a really brilliant violinist, and then he got drafted into World War II, and I think he had mental issues that cracked him up a little bit, and it's a terrible shame of a brilliant talent that he had. He could still, to the end, play violin beautifully, but he couldn't get a job, couldn't work.
That's my favorite instrument. What's your favorite instrument?
Well, I would say now for me piano, because I can fulfill all my parts that I'm working on. You know, as a composer, I've used the piano the most.
With your family spread out, how do you stay connected, and does travel or those connections inspire any of your stories or songs?
Yeah, because I've always been interested in folk material, but the roots of different kinds of music. So, and when I travel, I'm looking for the roots all the time. And I get very inspired by how did this sound and how did this kind of harmony start to happen, and what the different performance ways of doing music and the different instruments. So I'm kind of I could almost be an ethnomusicologist, someone that studies the musical cultures of different countries. So it's very important to me when I travel to kind of get a vibe like that of what their music is like.
Speaking of stuff like that, when we were beating you 9-2 in pickleball, and then you won, you beat us 11-9 and then 11-0. That was 20 straight unanswered points.
And well, thank you for mentioning that.
And I thought, boy, he was really hot. Okay, outside of composing and playwriting, what are some of your favorite hobbies or ways to unwind in the Cooks Forest region?
Pickleball.
Yes.
Of course. I pickleball. See, when I lived in Savannah, Georgia, taught there for 5 years. I picked up the game handball. It's like racquetball. It's the origin.
It's harder than racquetball.
It is. You have to use both hands and all that stuff.
Yes.
I got so involved in it. I played in a lot of tournaments and everything else, and I loved it. And there was a good crew of players down there and then I moved to Virginia, and I continued to play, but I was starting to get a little older, and there weren't as many handball players to play with anymore. It got ridiculous. It was like, can we get 2 people, 3 people any given day? And then pickleball came along, and it was like, okay, it's a nice transition. It's something I could play for a long time. And I switch hands with my paddle, which is a lot like handball. I mean, I can, my left is pretty, my brain can handle left side. which what's always the fascinating thing about handball to me is that you have to train your brain to do on this side
Either
what you
side.
do on this side. Your brain, it's a different part of your brain that has to do that. And once it's trained, you get more and more confident about it, you know. So pickleball is the best.
Ambidextrous. So who are some musicians, composers, or playwrights that have inspired you over the years?
Well, I guess I have to go to some of the greats. Like Leonard Bernstein was always a huge hero of mine. What he could do with musical theater and with conducting and with everything. But his Stephen Sondheim, another great, and those two worked, by the way, on West Side Story.
Okay.
And there's certain kinds of musicals that I don't like, and I don't even. I'm not the hugest Andrew Lloyd Webber fan, although I love Evita. I love one of his musicals, but not the other ones, Cats and others. But so anyway, I've gone to a lot of musical theater, and there's certain people that I admire the most, but there's only the very, very top ones are, I would say Bernstein and Stephen Sondheim.
For aspiring musicians and playwrights in rural Pennsylvania, what advice would you give them to pursue their craft?
They really have to do their craft, of course, but find people to read with and discuss and try things out. I mean, I need it more. I need more of a support system of people that would do some readings and stuff like that. But I feel like I'm lucky. My sister has a big connection of singers in her Venango chorus. I've done 2 pieces now at the Barrow, so the Barrow knows about me and can throw together some people. And so it's important that you have a community that you can share your work. Otherwise, you're alone. I mean, you're so isolated in your, I'm isolated in Cook Forest from. I don't have any. So the cultural thing is very important too.
Can you give us any previews of what you're working on now?
Well, yeah, I guess. My younger daughter, Phoebe, when she was like 13, read a young adult novel called Belle Prater's Boy. And it was set in Appalachia, and in actually southwestern Virginia. And she ran down the stairs one day and said, "Dad, you have to make this into a musical." It's a 13-year-old telling her dad, "You have to do that." So I had that in the back of my mind for a long time. And then I looked at it again and I decided I'm gonna give it a try. So it's my first real adaptation of a written novel. And I met the author. She's no longer with us, she died, but Ruth White, and I love the piece. The only thing is, it's not pizzazz musical. It's a musical drama about 2 young people, they're cousins, but a girl and a boy that have a lot to deal with in their past, in their childhood that they're dealing with. So it's emotional, but it might not be. It doesn't have like big show tunes and big numbers that make everyone happy or something. I think it's a beautiful story. So it's going to be a musical drama, and I will already know that some people won't like it.
So that's your challenge.
Yeah.
Finally, what message or feeling do you hope audiences take away from experiencing one of your musicals?
Well, I want them to be entertained, but I also want them to feel like it was a real, it had some emotion to it. They were moved by it. It wasn't like, that was nice. So, I mean, nice is a terrible word to me. It has to have some depth to it, and I don't want to. I have seen many extreme stories, like things that would never go over in the country of Western Pennsylvania. Like why are we watching this? I don't want to be too out there. It has to be something that has some feeling that belongs in Western Pennsylvania, that people can attach to and be a little bit moved by it. They don't have to think it's the greatest thing they ever saw, but it has to be like, I got something out of that.
Well, it sounds to me like you're saying you're hoping they enjoy it plus learn something.
Yeah.
So that was our interview for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was fun. I've never done.
I think this is podcast number 117. Thank you.
Okay. Neat.